Welcome to Around the Paul. It's great to have everybody watching in tonight. You'll catch us on YouTube for sure, but we're also live on Twitter tonight. Yes, we still call it Twitter. If you want to be technically correct, it is now X. But, we like nostalgia here on Around the Paul, and we're still going to call it Twitter. It's just what we do. Like it or not, that's happening. I'm Garrett Mitchell, joined tonight by Clifton Kennedy and Dustin Black tonight. And right off the top, guys, let's just go ahead and wish our fellow Around the Paul member, Griffin Barfield, good luck. He is actually it's 8:26 right now, so he has got a midterm exam starting in 4 minutes. And so that's why he's not on with us tonight. But we know Griffin's going to knock it out of the park. Just one of the smartest kids you'll ever meet. So everybody watching out there, go ahead and just drop a comment on this live Twitter feed and wish Griffin Barfield some good luck on that midterm. Once he's done, he gets to go back home for just a little bit. But we're going to talk tonight about the Wake Forest game last Saturday, and then we're going to dive into where the Clemson football team stands through the first 6 games of the season and entering the bye week. So we've got a lot to dissect, but before we do, we want to give a big shout out to our fine sponsor, Arden's Grill in Central South Carolina. And just stop by Arden's. We can't recommend them highly enough. They are your ultimate game day food destination and home to the legendary double dip wings. Myself, Clifton, and Anthony, we had some last Saturday before we headed over to the Wake Forest game. Highly recommend those. And they're located at 1280 18 Mile Road in Central South Carolina. They're your go-to spot for mouth-watering burgers, sizzling grills, and famous wings that will have your taste buds cheering for more. So go check out Arden's at 1280 18 Mile Road in Central. Thanks to those guys for sponsoring what we do here on Around the Paul. Now, let's jump right into it. Clemson's coming into their bye week, or going into their bye week, on the heels of a 17-12 win over Wake Forest. And Clifton, Dustin, you're always happy for a win, but you still walked out of Death Valley last Saturday having to feel like there was a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, or at least as much as there could be after a win.
Yeah, it was a very lackluster performance, if you ask me. Didn't seem like we could get much offense going, and it was sad to see, considering we had the past 2 games we had really started to throw down the field and put together some drives,
Right, and Dustin, it was, and you go back and you break down the film and you watch the film. Clemson fans, I don't know if perhaps it was a false sense of hope when you go back and watch the Florida State game, despite the fact that it was a loss. You saw a lot of really good things offensively. And then against Syracuse, it was much the same. You felt like you were building on that momentum, a lot of downfield shots. You were doing a lot of really good things to move the ball, get it into space into your playmakers' hands. And then you come out at home on homecoming against a Wake Forest team that, look, statistically is not a great defensive team. You felt like you would put a lot of points on the board, and it simply never materialized. The downfield shots went away. Cade Klubnik was off, overthrowing, underthrowing receivers, and the same refrain, unable to run and pick up 1, 2, 3 yards in short yardage running situations. So when you go back and look at the film, you break that down. Why the regression? Where did that come from after really 2 or 3 games of building some positive momentum?
Well, for me, it was a really tale of 2 halves on Saturday, especially when it comes to the offensive line. I felt like the offensive line had a really bad first half, really inconsistent, really struggled in some short yardage situations. But when you saw them come out at a halftime, they kind of settled in with the 5 guys that I think they're going to use moving forward. They used Colin Sadler as a left tackle, and they put Harris Sewell in at right guard, and they pretty much played the majority of the second half as a unit. And that's just something that I'm looking for going forward, is just to see them build some continuity at this point. You've seen a lot of guys rotate in and out of that line, and you've gotten some inconsistent play. So you hope that, coming out of the bye week, they've solidified their best 5, and they're going to continue with these 5 guys going forward and try and build some momentum.
Right, and guys, for all of us who have watched Clemson football for a long time, and particularly in the last 15 years of what we call the Dabo Swinney era, even before that, Clemson has always been able to run the ball effectively. They've always got guys back there who can tote the mail. The offensive line gives enough of a push to open up those holes. And Clemson really bases its offense around a dominant running game, which opens up everything else. I think this is the first time that we have seen the running game struggle to this extent in such a long time. So when you take stock of where this team is through the first 6 games of the year and you're breaking things down offensively, has it been a surprise that they've been so ineffective running the ball, particularly in short yardage situations? What do you do to get better?
Dustin, go ahead and take this one, buddy, and I'll go second.
Yeah, well, I kind of think that you're going to have to put some heavier personnel on the field. Like, I'd like to see some more tight ends get some run. I think Brenningstool has definitely improved as a blocker in the run game. But I think by simply putting maybe Ennis and Brenningstool on the field together, which you did see in the second half of Wake a little bit, you just get more big bodies. If your offensive line's not going to dominate with 5, you're going to need some bigger bodies in there to really push some guys around. So that's one thing that you can do to remedy. And also, like I said, just keeping the same 5 guys on the field and getting them more live game reps too is definitely going to help.
Yeah, I was glad to see Harris Sewell in there a little bit, and just to see him get some reps, and just to see what he can do in live game action. That was just exciting to see a little bit for me.
Right, and we're talking about the state of the offense, and again, it's been a kind of a hodgepodge of good and bad. And Dustin, you mentioned Jake Brenningstool, and after every game this year, I've done a piece, and you can check those out on our website, clemsonsportsmedia.com. You can also follow us at CU Sports Media on X, formerly Twitter, and we'll have all those up there as well. But I go back and kind of it's what's fun for me as a fan. I pick 5 hot takes from every game, just where I can kind of overreact a little bit and throw some wilder opinions out there. But one of the hot takes that I had coming out of the Wake Forest game was that Jake Brenningstool maybe needs to see his playing time scaled back and get Sage Ennis in there, because one thing that we've seen from Brenningstool is we heard how much he was going to be involved in the offense, how dominant he could be, and through 6 games it just has not materialized. And when he does catch the ball, it just seems like for a kid his size, he goes down way too easily. He's not fighting for those extra yards. And so at this point, I mean, could it possibly hurt to get Sage Ennis in there, get him more reps, even first-team reps, and see what he can do as the starter?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I've also been a little disappointed with how we've used Jake Brenningstool in the offense. I don't think Jake Brenningstool is, a guy that you can just flex out as a receiver and he's going to beat, some guy one-on-one.
Right.
He's more of a mismatch piece. So you kind of want to hide him in your formation, get a linebacker, or in the Florida State game, get a defensive end on him, and then, take care of that mismatch. But you're not just going to line him up on the outside, and he's not, athletic enough really to beat, a safety or a corner on one-on-one coverage.
Right. And Cliff, another player that really has seen his involvement in the offense just dwindle down to almost nothing. I mean, it's almost like a raindrop in the desert, how long we see him on the field. And that's Adam Randall. And again, a young man we heard coming into this season was going to be such an integral part of the offense. And now, yes, with the emergence of Tyler Brown, you've got Antonio Williams, who is set to imminently return, probably for the Miami game in 2 weeks. But again, another one of my hot takes from the Wake Forest game is, look, either use Adam Randall or lose him, because kids in this day and age, in this climate of college football, are not going to stick around a program if they're not getting to see the field. Randall has all of the physical attributes imaginable to be a great college football player, and he's from the state of South Carolina. He wanted to come to Clemson. But that's not enough of a tie to bind him to the Tigers program if he's not going to get ample opportunity to go out there and show what he can do. Why aren't we seeing Adam Randall?
So I'm going to quote a comment that we got on Facebook about your article. They said Adam Randall's making little or no effort when the ball's thrown his way. And he doesn't seem like he wants to go up and get the 50-50 balls. And it also in press conference on I think Monday, Riley was talking about how he only saw the field, I think, for like 5 plays or something like that. And maybe that is a result of, the way he's been playing in past games. I don't know, but he also said that that they need to get him more reps. And I like Adam Randall. Like I just don't see, why he's not making a bigger splash. And maybe it is effort. Maybe it's learning the offense. I don't know. Like it's a mystery because he's such a dynamic player, and at least he seems like one,
And the opportunities there too. I think that's the most frustrating thing is that it's not like Adam Randall's struggling to break through like an uberly talented wide receiver room. It's like we're begging someone to step up. And if Adam Randall just if he wanted to take over that room and be a dominant piece, the opportunity to do it is there. So I think that's what's most frustrating. And even going back to the press conference a little bit when Riley, he didn't really mince words this week. I don't know if you listened to his press conference, but kind of talking about how he felt like sometimes they were playing with 10. That's kind of how I feel when Adam Randall's on the field. I feel like that was kind of reading between the lines. You're kind of looking at him when he says that. So
yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, if Randall can get things going or what his role becomes down the back stretch of the season in the final 6 games. But before we move on, we're going to talk about the defense next. But when you go back and take stock of what the offense has been and what we've seen through 6 games, you've got your running backs in Shipley and Maffa, the offensive line, what they've been able to do or at times not been able to do. You've got the emergence of Tyler Brown and a healthy Troy Stellato at receiver, which have been nice positives. And so it's been a mixed bag. So when you go back and look at the offense through the first 6 games, before we move on to the defense, give it a grade.
I'm going to say, again, they've had flashes in those 2 games before Wake Forest. I'm going to go with like, and this might be crazy, but I'm going to go with a C and maybe a C plus, just because they haven't been consistent. Like, be consistent. And that's really what I want to see is consistency. And and I mean, we only had like last game we had less than 200 yards, I think, total passing in this game or something like that. I mean,
I believe it was somewhere in the 190 range.
Yeah,
it
was crazy.
It was not a lot.
So I'm gonna say a C plus.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a C. I just don't think they've been good enough in like the critical areas where you need to be good enough. Like you're not a good third down offense. You're not a good red zone offense, and your yards per play number is really down. So I mean, those are critical numbers for how successful an offense can be. And if I'm grading it on those scales, I mean they've really almost regressed as an offense in those areas.
Yeah, same guys. I'm going with somewhere between a C and a C plus as well. Just, at times it's been good. At times it's been downright bad. And I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. And through 6 games, that middle ground has been average. And that's exactly what a C is. And so I'm going with a grade of C for the offense. Well, now let's move on and talk about the defense. And I think there's a lot more positives to talk about on that side of the ball. Quite frankly, the defense has been really, really good. And even in the 2 losses, the Duke game and the Florida State game, it wasn't the defense that lost you those ball games. Yes, in overtime against Florida State, you've got a guy like Keon Coleman that goes up and gets a jump ball. Think about who had been guarding him the entire ball game and shut him down that wasn't on the field. That was Nate Wiggins. He had been injured a few minutes prior. But you take all that away, this has been a very, very good Clemson defense that through 6 games, in total defense, they rank 7th in the country.
Yeah, it's been the pass defense for me. I mean, the pass defense, I think, is really elite. I think that the run defense is always going to be there. You have a really stout front 6 with the front 4 and the 2 linebackers. But the secondary, the improvement that they've made in that aspect of defense is just – it's astronomical. I mean, it's night and day different than what we saw last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I've really noticed, is they haven't really given up a lot of big plays. You'll see one here and there, but not like that Wake Forest game last year. I mean, I said this in a couple podcasts ago. Ever since that Wake Forest game last year, they've consistently gotten better every game. But this year there have been hardly any big plays, and if there is a long pass play down, there's either a PI because they didn't want them to get past him, or they knocked the ball down. Like, I don't ever remember that I can think of off the top of my head seeing a big play. If there was, I missed it. So,
yeah. Oh, no, I agree 100%. And, I think the past several years, it was one of those things. Look, you're sitting there watching a game either in person or sitting in your living room, and an opposing quarterback drops back and just chucks one deep. It's almost, you felt like you had to close your eyes because you almost knew what was coming. Somebody was going to make the catch and was going to be another big chunk play for the opponent. And now it's almost when you see one of those deep balls go in the air from an opposing quarterback, you don't want to take your eyes off the TV because you might miss another spectacular play from somebody like Nate Wiggins or Sheridan Jones. And even the freshman Khalil Barnes, who has really been about as good a true freshman corner, I think, as I've seen in some time come into Clemson.
Yeah, he broke out in that, and he broke out in the spring game. And
it was early.
I knew, in the spring game, I knew that he was going to be a great player for Clemson. If not this year, he was going to be good in the years to come. And he's just kind of, when he's gotten his opportunities, he's played well.
Yeah.
And done what it takes to stay on the field. The only reason he's not staying on the field is because you got Nate Wiggins in front of him, and you got Makuba, and you got, you got all these great guys in front of him, so, but he's doing what it takes. Next year he'll be the man. He'll be
right. And Dustin, the defensive line, when you look at the front seven, the defensive line and the linebackers, I don't think, at least in my eye, it's been anything that I would call flashy, but it's been good. Maybe not flashy, but it's been good. They've done their job for the most part. And the front four particularly, you didn't see that many sacks early in the season. That's picked up the last several games. But you've got big guys in the middle that know what it takes, and they do what it takes. You've got Tyler Davis, Ruga Rororo, and Peter Woods, the freshman. But the one that has really flashed along that front seven, and it just makes you so excited to think about, you've got him for the rest of this year and two more after that, and that is Parker. My goodness, TJ Parker is looking like he could be one of the all-time great defensive ends to come through Tiger Town.
No, absolutely. Like, when you look at the point of where he's at now, only starting, a couple of games, or really not even starting, just getting starter reps. I mean, he could potentially, raise into that generational talent tier. I mean, honestly, like with some of the things that you see on film, like I know I've gone through a couple of my breakdowns, sometimes you see with like freshman edge rushers, they're just faster than the tackle and they'll be able to beat them off of speed. But he's winning with technique. He's winning hand battles with seasoned veteran, college football tackles. And that's good to see. I mean, it's just he's so far along, early on in his career. That's just, when you think about where he's going to be 2 years from now, it's a generally scary thought of how good he could possibly be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the video breakdowns. For everybody watching out there who will come back and watch this on YouTube, go check out Dustin's breakdowns. It's called Chalk Talk. You can find them on YouTube at Clemson Sports Media on YouTube. And it's a great watch. It's very informative. So go check those videos out. And Dustin, you do a great job on that. It's just a wealth of knowledge. We all really enjoy it. But when you look at this defense overall, has there been, if you had to pick out one weak spot of this defense, and it's kind of hard to go back and nitpick because it has been a unit that's been so good, where would you point to as an area that needs improvement as you go into the final 6 games and beyond?
I would just definitely say early downs, winning on like first and second down. I think that we're a really good third down defense. I think that, red zone has really stepped up, particularly in the Wake Forest game. But a lot of times, like I feel like they're just giving up like 8-9 yards on first down, and just kind of feeling the offense out a little bit too much. Like when Clemson's defense is aggressive on early downs, that's when they really get those 3-and-outs, and that's when the other team's punting more often than not. So I would just say limiting success on first down, second down, trying to get them in these obvious passing situations is obviously going to benefit everybody.
All right, so we're going back. We're grading the defense just like the offense. Just toss out a grade for the defense.
A+. I mean, there are things that they can work on. Don't get me wrong, but they've got the one thing that I wanted to see after, I would say, the Florida State game, I guess, was more sacks, and they've done that. And so I mean, to be realistic, I mean maybe like an A-. I guess I really shouldn't give them an A+ because they do need to work on something, right?
There's always something to coach against.
Yeah, there's always something to be coached on. So yeah, A-.
I'm just gonna go flat out A. I mean, I think that there's obviously room for improvement to give them an A+, but they've done everything that we've asked them to do. And it's funny thinking back to a year ago, people wanting to fire Wes Goodwin, and now it's almost like you look at our record at 4-2, and you're like, thank God for Wes Goodwin, because we would not be 4-2 if this defense was not playing at the level they are. So I give them an A. I say they're doing a great job. Obviously, some things they need to improve on, but just overall, just great unit so far.
Yeah, I think Coach Goodwin, he's done a very good job overall. I think maybe it was the dad that kind of had to redirect the kid a little bit in the Florida State game, and Dabo gave him a nice stern talking to. But other than that, I think Wes Goodwin's done a terrific job. I agree with what you both said. The defense has just been really, really good through 6 games, and really could be worse than 4-2 if not for those guys. So yeah, I'm going A on the defense. I'm not going A+ because, like I said, there's always something to coach against, and I'm not going to be. I'm a tough critic, so I'm not going to be that generous. But certainly an A for the Clemson defense. But I'm like Ralphie's teacher in A Christmas Story. C+. Come on now, you don't have to be that tough, but but certainly the defense has been great. But special teams, the moment we've all been waiting for, special teams. I don't think too much needs to be said, or we could probably just jump right into the grading scale here, but it's left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, Dustin, go ahead and throw that stat out there you were telling us before.
Oh yeah. This was shocking.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's gone. I'm sure we're still, in the position that we were before the Wake game, but before the Wake Forest game, we were dead last in the country in terms of gross punt yards against, which means we are terrible at fielding punts. This also means we're forcing a lot of punts, which is a good thing, but, we're letting, punters average 50, 55 yards a punt because we can't field them well. Prime example, Tyler Brown on Saturday, letting the ball bounce and then inexplicably picking it up on the 5-yard line. But we're averaging over, opposing punters are averaging like 220 yards a game against us. There's no pressure on the punter. The punter's able to just sit back there, tee it up, and punt as long as he wants. And then when it comes to fielding the punts, we're just not really that great at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that whole thing, and that's just a crazy stat. I would have never known that if you wouldn't have been on the podcast this week, and so that's crazy. But just from observing, it seems like, and the stat proves it. It seems like every punter has his best day against Clemson, and I think you're right. I think it comes down to us being able to field a punt. And I think that is definitely the two things I think we need to get better at. And I think this is just common sense, is fielding a punt and putting pressure on the punter. And that's just common sense. Like, that's just throwing the obvious out there. But those are the two things we need to get better at. And because if you put pressure on the punt, he's not going to kick it 50 yards. I mean, he might, but if we field it, then we'll return it 10, 15 yards. So, those are the two things we need to get better at. And that's kind of where I'm at. In my grade, I'm going to give them, and this is crazy, but I'm going to say a D. Like, I mean, we had that one good return, but, man, you don't even get a C with me. Like, you just got to do better at those things, the common things.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if just
simply, I'm going to.
I was gonna say D minus. I mean, if as long as we're running people out there to play special teams, I guess I won't give them an F. But they're not adding anything to our win total or helping us win games whatsoever. So you just can't give them anything higher than a D minus. I mean, they're almost become a negative on the field. I mean, we're not really participating on that third of the game.
No, definitely not. Go ahead.
And I'm going to go with a D minus as well. And I'm being generous. I feel like I'm being generous with a D minus. And this is my one act of charity for this show. And I'm only going with a D minus because Clemson is actually fairly okay in terms of covering kickoffs. And that's the redeeming quality. But it's not just the punt returns. The place kicking situation is an utter mess. You replace the freshman, Robert Gunn III, with a graduate student who is getting ready to start a career as a stockbroker, and you bring him out of retirement. And you know what? God bless Jonathan Whites. I mean, it's a tough situation for him to be in, but, missed a straight-on 29-yard kick that would have beaten Florida State at home. You send him out there to kick a 51-yarder against Syracuse, and that goes wide to the left. He's missed a few other short ones. Even the kicking PATs has not been automatic, and that's should hurt anybody to say. But the place kicking situation has been a mess. There's no obvious way in sight to fix it, at least not this season. And so I just, in all good conscience, I can't go any higher than a D minus. And, as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I've got to say about that.
Yep. Exactly.
So special teams, cut and dry. I don't think there's any sense of dwelling on it any further. So, as we go into the bye week, I think it's coming at a good time for the Tigers. It's an opportunity to get some guys healthy who have been out. I think that will be back for the Miami game. But for the guys that have been on the field, there have been some standouts on this Clemson team on both sides of the ball. So, let's like the Knights of the Round Table that we are, let's just go around the room and toss out who some of the standouts have been for the Clemson Tigers. And we'll start with the offense. Dustin, who have been the guys that have stood out to you the most?
Well, you got to go with Tyler Brown. I mean, he's been special so far. He's been a big plus on offense. He's gotten the bulk of the explosive plays. He's really been that injection of speed that we need in the wide receiver room. And listen, losing Antonio Williams is massive. And with Tyler Brown, you don't feel like that drop off is that big from Antonio Williams to him. So, if you don't have him on your roster, you're probably running Hamp Green out there in your slot. So let's just be thankful that Tyler Brown's there and we have him. So I would say that, he's definitely, for me, the MVP on offense so far.
Yeah, for sure. That's who I was going to say. I mean, yeah, he's just kind of came out of nowhere. People knew that he was going to be great eventually, but I don't think that he would have a season similar to Antonio Williams. And that's really all I have to say about that. I mean, it's just Tyler Brown. He's just been amazing.
Yeah, and Tyler Brown for sure. And, another one that I'll throw out there, and really that kind of came out of nowhere simply because we never really got to see him on the field the last 2 years. And now that he's healthy and now that we can watch him play and see what he can do, Troy Stellato has been an absolute revelation at wide receiver, almost to the degree I think that Tyler Brown has. He's been really good.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. And there were a lot of times he was open on Saturday against Wake and just didn't get looks his way. And he's been a big plus for sure.
Yeah, so you got Tyler Brown, you've got Troy Stellato. I think Phil Maffa's been very good through the first 6 games as well. Even when some of those running lanes have closed up, Phil Maffa, he's just so big and strong. He runs really hard. And so that's been a plus in the run game as well. We have seen the flashes from Will Shipley, but I think he's more of, probably a proven commodity when you take stock of 2.5 years and what he's done on the whole. But certainly some guys that flashed in the first 6 games. We're looking forward to seeing what they can do over the final 6. Now, defensively, same question. Who have been some of those guys that have just popped, that have stood out and just make you go, wow, every time you watch them play? I know I'll start. I'll say it's TJ Parker.
Yeah, TJ Parker. I just lost his name. It sucks getting old. 36.
Khalil Barnes.
Kids, if you're watching
Khalil
out
Barnes.
there, don't get old. Take it
Don't
from
get
Cliff
old.
and
Yeah.
all of us. Don't get old.
Don't get old. Yeah. Khalil Barnes has been a standout for me. And so, yeah.
I think for me, it's Tyler Davis. Tyler Davis has been an absolute wrecking ball in the middle of the field. He's slowly climbing up these draft boards. I can promise you that, you look at him coming back for another year and probably could have gone, pretty high in the draft last year. And I think he's just going to continue to climb these draft boards. I mean, he really is a special player that doesn't get a lot of recognition. But I think I saw a post today that he was one of the highest rated defenders, not just defensive linemen, just defenders from week 6. And he's just been, a real consistent mainstay in that Clemson defensive line. So I'll give him his flowers for the first half of the year.
I'm gonna throw another one in there, and I'm gonna say Peter Woods too. I mean, all my guys are freshmen, but it's hard to say because the defense has been so good. It's hard to say to just give one person, right?
Exactly.
Because if you ask me, Nate Wiggins has been great, a lot better than last year. And,
right. I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Wiggins' name for sure.
Yeah, and he'll be back in a week or two. I mean, so.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. You could mention about all 11 people here, honestly. I mean, even Maskell. I mean, look at how Maskell's played this first half of the year. Right. As much flack as we wanted to give him preseason, and all that stuff. But he's been really good. I mean, he's been a plus. So.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to end tonight. We're going to talk about some of the guys who need to step up and make a bigger impact. Before we do, I've got to throw this out there. You guys notice, especially Clifton, you and Dustin, when we were talking about special teams, I think we entered a glitch in the matrix. Both of your feeds are up a little bit. See, I mentioned special teams again, and there it goes. We quit talking about it. The feed goes back to normal. So we're going to stay far, far away from special teams the rest of the night. But all right, players that need to step up and make a bigger impact in the second half of the season. Who you got?
Adam Randall. I mean, he's got to, or he's going to lose a spot when Antonio Williams comes back. I mean, because he's just got to step up and go get the balls that are thrown to him, because the few balls that have been thrown to him, he drops them.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Randall definitely, but I mean, I think you got to look at Cade Klubnik. I mean, Cade Klubnik has to play better the second half of this season if Clemson wants to continue to win games. I mean, not that Cade's been a negative, every time he's on the field. I mean, he's had some good moments, and you've seen that 5-star talent kind of shine through, but this offense has been inconsistent for about 3 seasons now. And if we're going to get consistent play out of the offense as a whole, it starts and ends with the quarterback. So more consistent play out of him for the second half of the season just, I think, elevates everybody around him.
I'm going to say offensive line as well. They've had their games, and I want to see more Harris Sewell. We've seen a lot of him, but I want to see more of him and see how he can help that offensive line.
Oh yeah, I think that we kind of hyped up the linebackers to be one of the best duos in the country, and that's the expectations that they came into the season with. So I'm guessing what he's alluding to is that they need to live up to that billing of being one of the best duos in the country. That's linebacker play at Clemson is, right now it's kind of a first world problem. I mean, our linebackers are very good. Don't get me wrong, but like they were built up to be the best duo in the country, and they have not been the best duo in the country through 6 weeks. So I don't know if that's where he was planning on taking that, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, guys, for sure. We've got some players who need to step up and have bigger impacts in the second half of the season. But, I've got confidence that some of those, those guys, they're tough. They're tough. They'll figure it out. And I do have confidence in this team. I think they'll step up and get it together. But we will say, because this is a bye week, and we're going to wrap up tonight with this. It is a bye week. There's no game to talk about this week. And so we've come up with some special shows for this week for Around the Paul. This is just the appetizer. And we've got 2 more coming starting tomorrow night that I think are going to be right up people's alley. We're going to talk about, we're going to go back and take a look down memory lane and break down the 5 biggest wins of Dabo Swinney's tenure as head coach at Clemson. Everybody knows, of course, he is now tied with Frank Howard as the winningest coach in Clemson history. If he beats Miami in 2 weeks, he'll have that record all to himself. So I think it's fitting that we go back and do a show and look at the biggest wins of Dabo's tenure. We're going to pick a top 5, and we're going to break those down, but then we'll have some honorable mentions as well. If you're watching live out there, drop us some comments on Twitter. Leave us some comments on YouTube, of course, after you like and subscribe. And give us some of your opinions on what the top 5 biggest games of Dabo Swinney's tenure or the biggest wins of Dabo Swinney's tenure have been. And conversely, we're going to do a show as well, and we're going to take a look back at maybe the top 8 to 10 best players at Clemson in the Dabo Swinney era. And there have certainly been some of the biggest names to ever wear the pall at Clemson University. So we're going to go back and take a look at some of those guys and their contributions as well, because they've been such a vital part in helping build Clemson into the championship program that we all expect it to be at this point. And so it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night. Clifton, can't wait to talk about some of that stuff because it should, at least for me, I know for you and everybody watching, it's going to bring back a lot of fond memories.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. It's going to be good. It's going to be a pre-recorded thing, so look for it on YouTube, and then we'll post it to all the socials. So that won't be a live thing. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, Dustin, as Clemson fans, we can look back and, a lot of memories over the course of our lifetimes, but it's easy to sit and nitpick and gripe about things now and the state of how things are. But, lest we lose sight of the fact that for the last 15 years, it's been one hell of a ride. And, I still don't think that the train is going to go off the tracks quite yet.
No, not at all. I really don't think so. And I think that there's going to be some more adjustment that Dabo does to adjust with the sport. I don't think he's just going to, let the sport pass him by per se, like people think he is. He may not be the trailblazer on a lot of these things that we've seen, but he's way too competitive of a dude to just sit there and take these losses and let people pass him by. So it seems to me that Dabo still has that competitive spirit to him. And I think as long as he's at the helm of the program, this program's in a good place for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep.
All right, so guys, everybody out there watching, hope you've enjoyed this show, technical difficulties and all. But tell you what, be on the lookout for these special episodes that we're going to be dropping here in the next couple of days. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to talk about that. Griffin will be back with us on the next episode. But I tell you what, Dustin, man, glad to have you on tonight. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you bring so much to the show when you come on. Come back anytime.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
bravo.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Yeah,
love what you guys.
Big
love
round
what you
of
guys
applause.
do.
I'm
Love what you
glad
guys do, man. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm glad you jumped on it last minute. because I didn't text you till about, I don't know, it's probably like 6 o'clock.
Anytime, man. You let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, surprise drop in performance, Dustin. We appreciate it. Before we sign off, again, just want to tell you about our sponsor, Arden's Burger Grill. They're at 1280 18 Mile Road in Central South Carolina, and they are your ultimate home for game day food. They're home to the legendary double dipped wings. Of course, we can all vouch for that. They are fantastic. And they're your go-to spot for mouth-watering burgers, sizzling grills, and famous wings that will have your taste buds cheering for more. So stop by Arden's Burger Grill at 1280 18 Mile Road, Central South Carolina for all of your game day food needs. And you could tell them that the crew from Clemson Sports Media and Around the Paul sent you there. Couldn't recommend them enough. So thanks to Arden's. That's going to do it for us for tonight's show. I'm Garrett Mitchell, Dustin Black, and Clifton Kennedy for all of us at Clemson Sports Media and Around the Paul. Good night and go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.